manually and acoustically and remotely with robots. I don't know exactly. The picture I saw, that one looked different than what I see on land. They usually stack three on top of each other right beneath the rig floor.
How large are we talking here?
I guess the three of them probably stand 12, 15 feet tall. Maybe a little taller.
And so we're talking steel. They're probably we're talking in terms of several tons.
Right, very heavy steel. When they're engaged, they grab onto the pipe and shear the pipe. Many of them.
Well, did they fail? Do they know this? I wonder. Did they fail structurally, or did they just fail to do what they're supposed to engage?
Both, I imagine, could happen. Like they test BOPs before they enter any formation where they believe they have gas or oil.
How much pressure are we talking about with the oil actually coming out of the ocean floor? I mean, is that under tremendously high pressure, or
it can be, depending on the amount of gas that's present in it. Natural gas, methane, ethane, propane, all of those. It can be under a tremendous amount of pressure, and there can be no pressure at all. On land, like we were discussing earlier, the water is approximately 8 pounds a gallon. They'll mix barite in the water until we get 9.5, say, pounds per gallon. A 9.5 heavy, or a little bit heavier. In the Gulf, where they have bigger deposits, they have more gas. Of course, like Mobile Bay, it's almost all gas. I believe they use up to 16-pound mud, so it's 16 pounds a gallon, twice the weight of water, to hold back that pressure.
Right.
And but usually once they've drilled through the production zone or cored through the production zone and have run some production pipe and start the cementing process, you think that they would have already dealt with most of the pressure.
This has been described as sweet crude, which I understand has a lower sulfur content. And now, the drilling onshore is that probably from a similar type of crude oil, or are we talking about difference there too?
It is similar. I see a lot
and that's approvable through DEP. It falls into their general permit and the Corps of Engineers. Almost anything you want to do above the mean high water line on private property, not Gulf front. Gulf front, you've got the issue of turtles and things, but otherwise, that's exactly right. That's one of the arsenals are absorbents, and all of those peat and everything else fall into that absorbent category.
And they're natural material and
biodegradable. The worst part might be the sandbag, because they're made out of nylon anymore.
of the contaminants they absorb.
Yes.
Yeah. Which is why you'd have to pick them up. You wouldn't want them going back out and recycling again.
Right, that's it. Those are disposable type of items, just like the sorbent boom is too. And but you can, if you can find the right facility. I know International Paper is looking at their permit is can they burn these so that we have a more sustainable solution.
It's reported that it's believed that an expanding methane bubble or Rick formed below the bottom, taking out seals on the way up through the riser. That may have been responsible for the explosion. Do you have any thoughts on how something like that might have been prevented?
Well, I've so many thoughts on this whole thing after listening to it for weeks and working in the industry and the environment. And if I might can I start at the top?
Sure.
Oil has many different products in it, all the way from wax to tar to gasoline, xylenes and toluenes, and most of them are toxic. Dispersants can be toxic in enclosed environmental situations. Oil on the bottom or on the top will be degraded somewhat by bacteria, biodegradation, or remediation. It's slow. Most of the things we have aren't necessarily all that affected, but they all probably need to be used. In this circumstance, it's still leaking, we still have a major problem. The different materials we talked about with large surface areas are great because it sticks to them.
Right.
remove it. Every drop we remove is one less drop in the environment. A lot of small creatures are going to probably be impacted most. I would think these islands of grass that float out there, if you've ever looked at an island of grass closely or picked up a handful and put it in a clear jar, it's loaded with all kinds of things.
Sure.
And, okay, so now we get to how do we contain this thing. Good question. We're looking at 5,000 feet, 150 plus atmospheres of pressure. Things happen down there that don't happen on the surface. The simple technology like a dome seemed feasible. Apparently it clogged up with methane hydrates. It's cold and a lot of pressure. Gases act different to form crystals. Will the small one work? It's possible. It has less cold water in it. Less area for hydrates to build up. It might work. They've got more than one leak. Maybe they need to use several.
Well, let me stop you there for a moment. If, as you told me earlier, the oil that is coming out of the ground is still pretty hot down there until it hits the water and it's cool off rather rapidly. But with that, I'm still a little confused about why the hydrates, the ice crystals would form if you've got the heat from the oil in there coming out.
Well, it's probably around 42 degrees down there, I would imagine, somewhere in that area. And it doesn't, there's how many stories, 4 stories tall, there's a lot of water in there.
Yeah.
Oil's coming out in a stream. It doesn't take much to cool off the stream.
Sure.
It immediately probably disperses somewhat, cool off relatively quickly, all the pressure on it. I'm sure they weren't water ice crystals, they were probably methane hydrate crystals, which form naturally on the ocean floor. They'd be a good source of energy. How this thing blew out exactly, I don't understand myself. I don't have enough knowledge or information about what exactly happened out there, whether it was a casing failure or a cement failure. Apparently they had already penetrated into their production zone and were getting ready to cement up production pipe. They must have had a pulse of gas that blew the concrete out. Where it came from is anybody's guess. Sometimes the walls, the outer walls collapse. They get some washout, maybe something collapsed and they got a big pulse of gas.
Well, now, this well was already producing oil, is that correct? This was not still...
I really don't know exactly if they were producing or in the production phase getting ready to produce oil. I believe they were getting ready to produce oil.
Ah, okay.
But I may be wrong.
And that may be why they still...
Off their connection and disconnect the rig from the pipe itself.
They can do that.
Yeah, they should be able to do that. It really is
right out then, yes.
Yeah, at any point, really probably in the process. That's one reason why we don't have too many of them fail while there is a hurricane. They cut their connection off and just waiting out the storm.
Thanks for calling Citizen Voice.
This is Jerry again. You know, I thank Keith for saying this will be a decade problem. You know, you can go, I walk the beaches in Santa Barbara.
Thousands of tons of shipping, including tankers full of crude oil that went down. We were busy fighting a war at that time, but what happened to all that oil? Doesn't this kind of speak to the resilience of the planet to heal itself? And I'm getting this signal we're out of time, so I won't...
Thank you both for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll tune in 2 weeks from tonight.
Here comes trouble. Make that big trouble.